We're live.
Terrific, and welcome to the Westminster Historic District Commission meeting. Tonight's meeting is Wednesday, September 4th, and we're trying a new time at 6 o'clock. We're at City Hall on Emerald Lane, Westminster, Maryland. I'm going to call us to order with our statement of authority. The Westminster Historic District Commission derives its authority from Chapter 164, Article 9A of the City Code, which is authorized by the Maryland Code annotated. Land Use Article Division 1, Single Jurisdiction Planning and Zoning, Title 8, Historic Preservation. Qualifications of the Westminster Historic District Commission are on file at the City Administration Building, 45 West Main Street, and the file is open to the public. And I always like to start out with a roll call of who's here with the commission and their role.
Kevin Wagman.
Thank you.
Kathy Beatty.
Chris McMaster's chair.
Chris Amadori, co-chair. Vice chair.
Chair of Vice.
Grace Kevin Oliver.
Mark Depot, the Director of Community Planning and Development.
Melissa Thorne, the City Economic Development Coordinator.
Thank you, and we do have public here tonight. So that's terrific. Okay, so the agenda was posted and we're sticking with it. We have new business tonight, and tonight's new business item, LMA 2402, Historic District Architectural Referral for 22 East Green Street. Mr. Depo, I understand you're taking the lead.
Yes, I am. Thank you. So this is for a zoning map amendment, which is the LMA, Substantial Local Map Amendment 2402 for 2222 East Green Street. Essentially, the applicant is asking to apply the compatible neighborhood overlay zone to the CN zone over top the existing I-7500 residential zone. This zoning district is solely residential only. It allows for all types of residential, from single family to multifamily. It's not allowed for commercial use. And we'll get over to that with the architecture. So this is going through its process. It's been to the Planning Commission for introduction and work session. We plan to go to public hearing to the Planning Commission this month, I believe the 19th of September. But prior to that, as this is a new development in the historic district, we'll bring it before the HPC for recommendation and referral. And to point out, just because it's going to Planning Commission for public hearing, my guess is there'll probably be a work session following that. There's a possibility depending on the public output or input. So with that, the applicant, it's 222 East Green Street. Right now it's a vacant field. It's adjacent to Sycamore and Winchester and Rouse Street surround it, as well as East Green Street. So it's bordered by roadways on all four sides. Staff would be proposing any development on this property. Sycamore Street would have to be continued and extended. Therefore, you're connecting what is now a dead-end roadway to complete the grid movement. Sidewalks on all four sides of the roadways. So again, this would be any development that we're looking for this property. We're looking for that connection. It helps out with traffic and also both pedestrian and vehicular movement.
Emergency.
Yep. So what we have tonight, and the applicant is here, you can explain more, is a 4-story proposal. There was also a 3-story proposal. The Planning Commission felt a little bit more in favor of the 4-story. They have enjoyed the architecture more. And 3-story they thought was a little short with the length of the building, where the 4-story provides a little bit more size, and I think is a better looking building. Just some elements of the building, and the applicant getting this too. I referenced the first floor retail component that isn't allowed. We did a lot of research of Alexandria, Ithaca, Frederick, some other historic districts and downtowns with this type of development. We're finding the proposal is very consistent. In some cases, not nearly as modern as some of the other new buildings being built in these areas. One element they do have is a higher first floor. Because a lot of them allow for a retail component on the first floor, so you would need, typically a minimum 14-foot high first floor. In this development, that again is not allowed because that use is not allowed. So this is solely just for residential units. And that's really it. I'm available for any questions. Again, the applicant can get more into the architecture, design. One of the elements, if you've noticed, the very top has a much lighter look to it from the other three stories. That's to break up the height of that as well. So that is also very common in a lot of the developments I've noticed in those areas, and we did when I looked around for comparable type of development for infill in a historic district setting. And again, available for questions. The applicant's here if you want him to go or if you have any questions. And
Did you receive my research?
All the pictures.
I did not. I was out yesterday. I apologize.
Oh, I sent this a month,
Oh,
like
really?
weeks ago.
I did not see that.
Yeah. Actually, after we got our first introduction to this last month, I went out like on the following Saturday. No, that's not it. What I did is I actually drove around the entire historic district.
You sent it to everybody.
I don't know if I sent it to everybody. I think I sent it just to city staff because I'm a little concerned about any issues of collusion or whatever. I let city staff decide what filters out to the rest of the commissioners.
Right, and I think Mark for the introduction, I would appreciate it. If I could add a couple more elements to the project, the way we looked into it. We decided to develop this site that whatever we propose, we wanted to bring the kind of breath of fresh air to the neighborhood. With no disrespect to the historic building around it. And in order how we, the way I see it, we try to accomplish it. If you familiar with the East Green Street, there is on the right side, there is a row homes, the very long section, very similar to the length of other building. We decided to mimic it in a little bit modern way. If you could see, it's maybe hard to see on the picture, but what we're proposing, each first floor has a separate entrance. In the way the architecture is built, it's vertical steps. That is one of the townhomes. And with the parking, street parking that will remain in front of the building, it's kind of our interpretation of modern row homes that kind of blend with the historic neighborhood. But again, everybody has comments and I see the face. So I'm ready to take it.
All right, so I did go out and I drove extensively through the historic district, looking for any homes that have that appearance of being a townhome. And I sent Mark a picture of everyone I could find. And one thing that I noticed driving throughout Westminster is there are really no 4 stories. They're all 3 or 2.5 stories, basically. That 4th story is really tall for us. I mean, there's certain buildings that go up 4 stories, but no row homes that I could find. The ones on the next block over is the biggest mass of continuous row homes. And those are really only 3-story.
But if you look at the pictures that I provided, you, the next door is actually 4th story. That 4th story is kind of in the roof in the attic, but that is 4th story building, literally next door. So I put on page 12. And even the
These are the romances you were talking about.
That's very common.
right, yeah, it's fine.
And it's behind.
I see that.
These are, I see this 1, 2.5 or 3.
Yeah, that's 2.5.
And then the basement.
But the basement is below elevation, not like this.
Well, and then the building in the neighborhood, it's actually old school building, which is higher than.
I did not count that though, because that's not residential.
Okay.
I'm focusing on only residential.
Pretty far away from where you're.
Yeah, well, I went throughout the entire historic district. I was scouring for anything over 3 stories. And I could not find anything in the historic district over 3 stories.
Well, the only thing probably is Winchester Place, which is this one.
But I don't look at that as townhomes, I look at that as a complex.
Because that
So.
the earliest part of that is 1818. And by the 19th century, it was a resort.
Yeah.
Which is why there's that empty lot, that was part of, there was a spring there, that was part of the resort. There.
Oh, there was a spring there? Your engineer should know that. Did you hear her?
No.
There's a spring on the property that you're looking at. That, this big building was a resort, the earliest part was built in 1818, but by the late 19th century, that and the adjoining properties were all part of a resort. People would come from all over the state and spend the summer in Westminster. So that vacant area in front was part of that complex.
Something you might want to test,
We just did a soil borings.
like perk tests or whatever.
Perk test and borings, we had 10 borings all around the sites that will give us about geotechnical clear picture what's happening on the site.
You don't want to build where it's unstable.
No, absolutely not. Nobody wants that. I just wanted to show you this. It basically depicts every home, the heights of every home around the block. And you have a picture response. Some of them sitting high on elevated a little bit because the site is kind of small. And there is our heights of this 4-story building. And that is heights of surrounding buildings. So this building will not be mass stack sticking around.
But those ones on Winchester Avenue are behind where you're building, so you're not even gonna see them
They are
with yours in front of them.
That's correct, but building behind, if you look on the roof level, they will be pretty much dimension.
They're gonna be behind yours, looking at the height of that and the height of yours.
And the elevation is, as you mentioned, a slope,
Right,
right? So this,
just wanted to show you. the
Right.
site plan.
So it's the ones on Green Street that are going to be most impacted by the height.
That is correct.
And they're significantly lower than,
Yes, those two homes are a little bit, well, significantly lower, those two homes are sticking up higher. For the rest of the neighborhood surrounding, those buildings, you have a beautiful view because they're sitting higher, the building along Winchester Avenue. We will going to maintain this green space separation between the parking lot and the neighborhood. And the parking lot by itself will provide an obstructed view. So,
but they're gonna have a view of the parking lot in the back of your townhouse.
yes, that's a view they're going to.
Right.
so as I was doing my research in town, I found a little more buffer from the street to the front facades, but not much, maybe only a foot or two difference. But, you know, there is a sound issue with Green Street. So it's something just to consider that you're really on top of Green Street as a road with your units. Another foot or two pulling back would put it in line with the facades of the rest of the street. And because the street facades are so uniform throughout the historic district, it's something to consider.
Oh, absolutely, that's something, so right now, I can tell you. So, per initial comments from the city, I don't know what the rendering of the plan you are seeing, but the latest and greatest plan show 10-foot sidewalk along the Green Street. And there is another 10-foot green, what will put the landscape buffer between the sidewalk and the front of the building from the facade. If you would like that to increase and the city does not have objection, we can push it further out and a little bit back.
I would just say, because I don't really know latest and greatest, I'd say just make sure it's consistent with the facade distance and depth from Green Street. Just keep it at consistent, and that might be what it is today. I'm not entirely sure.
I think, to be honest, I think we are a little bit bad compared to this row homes that along the street. We are a little bit set back, even further deeper than they do.
To me, that would be my first comment
Okay.
to consider.
Definitely.
Secondly, I have a great concern. I would want the other commissioners to chime in with the height. And honestly, if planning board thinks differently, I'll go talk to them about this, because this is four stories is just out of character with the rest of the historic district. And I think it really does damage to step that far outside.
Well, it's not. You have, on Railroad, you have a 4-story, very long building. That's 4 stories. You have a 7-story
But
building.
those are all commercial. We're talking
Now, the
about,
7-story is a senior housing. That's 7 stories. That's an historic district. That's behind Paradisio. The one on Railroad, of course, it's commercial. That could certainly be renovated someday for residential, which would be great. That has a residential component.
but those weren't really built when we were considering historic district things. And just because you have intrusions doesn't mean more intrusions are a good idea.
Well, the 4-story building is, it's a historic building.
Which one is it?
It's the one along that's fronting on Railroad where HSP is located.
Oh, the distillery building.
Yeah,
So that's an industrial building, right? It wasn't built as part of a residential area.
would not look, but if you were looking at bulk and size, which we're looking at, it's very similar to that size, bulk and size of that building.
But it is in a commercial district, it's not next to private residences. That are gonna be dwarfed by this.
It's right next to a 7-story multi,
Right, but it's in the commercial district.
And
Not in
the
a residential
7-story
neighborhood.
multi-apartment complex is the only residence I can think of.
What was
Everything
that
else
built?
is. The
The-
distillery?
No,
The
outlook is a
wow.
7-story.
Yeah, that's like a seventies.
Yeah.
70s,
Yeah,
70s.
it's like a century old.
Yeah, they weren't considering the historic district at the time, it predates the historic district. I'm just saying for this location in this neighborhood as a residential, it sticks up too high. And I'd love to come and talk to the planning and zoning folks if they find that difficult, because to me, saying, oh, it's the same size as a distillery, well, you wouldn't want a distillery there either. Either way, it's not really, appropriate for historic residential. But to me, that's a concern. Maybe I'm too loud about this. Should we go down the line and ask our commissioners what they think? What do you think, Kevin?
Initially, when I heard 4 stories, I know that downtown, we're next door to the stone building that was a restaurant, now is owned by Johansson. It's the Irish pub. There, next to them is a condo. They were limited years ago how high they could be. So to me, I would not want to see in a historic district 4 level high.
It's the same height as the building you're talking about, it's a 4-story building. The one on Liberty next to O'Lorden's,
Yeah, and that was another new
it's
one.
another
that was-
4-story building.
It's replacing a silo, spring silos. I mean, people were sort of used to tall things there in the 1990s, and we weren't consulted.
I'm just, to say this is out of the ordinary of the historic district, I think is just
Not generous.
misstating,
Well, I-
yeah, because then I think you've already named 3, 4 buildings. The building behind this is, probably 4 stories, probably have a rooftop area in there, so you have 3 stories
It's a
and a
19th
kitchen.
century
It's a
building.
19th century,
But
it's a
height,
true
we're
historic.
still
building.
about height, bulk, size, which
But
is supposed to be
Christopher,
taken
I-
into
I-
account.
But you have a vacant lot in front of it, so then you have a gradual look at that tall building. Also, it was, people came for there, like they come to the building Mothers in, Pennsylvania, Maryland. It was a resort. Also back in then when it was built, heck, there was no houses at all around there.
Yeah, it was pretty vacant. Kathy, what were you gonna say?
I moved here in 1999 and the building next to O'Lorden's, I looked at that and went, what in the world were they thinking to build that next to that beautiful little stone building?
That's a perfect example of intrusion. I mean, if I wanted to take a picture of that historic preservation, that building would be number one.
I mean, I know it serves a purpose, it's fully occupied and all that, but that was my reaction as a historian was, what in the world?
And it's got modern finishes on the exterior. Okay, what did you think, Chris?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of other comments about this structure, but, you know, just looking at that in a vacuum that way, it looks okay, but it's gonna look like a castle in the middle of these little structures. So it's just gonna sit there like this big mass. So, I mean, that's the way I feel. So it's gonna be higher. I mean, there are other issues on top of the height, but,
Well, let's just talk about
right, so, yeah, I mean, since it's, yeah,
I mean,
there's nothing around there that's gonna be that high, it's just gonna stick out, I think, like, you're right, a sore thumb.
and then what do you think, Greg?
I agree too. I mean, I know the area quite well, or very well. And I do think it would stick out like a sore thumb. It's too tall. As well as the,
Now, is there any chance you could take that first floor and dig down a little bit, like the next door neighbors did?
We could lower it, yeah.
I mean, you know, put it as a subterranean, because then it wouldn't be so high, but you get your 4 stories.
We lower it, 6 feet.
3 feet.
And again, to the comments regarding it's going to stick out above the neighborhood, it's not the case, because that is the top of the surrounding building. Those buildings just around the block. And if you see the heights,
If those tall ones are behind it,
Well, there's only 2 taller ones.
it's the ones on the right side that are next to it that are gonna be dwarfed by it.
you're talking about commercial, it's a 1-story commercial building.
No, the
No,
ones,
no.
the ones to
The
the
ones on
right.
East Green Street, the 4 on the right, those are the adjoining ones. The ones on Winchester Avenue are behind it, you won't even see them once this is built.
There'll be no view escape.
So their height really isn't going to be relevant because you're not gonna know they're there.
They're the same height. When you go to the pitch of those roofs
Right.
of those buildings equal to this, I think those might be a little bit taller. He did the study for that.
Right,
So comparatively, next to each other, the height is the same, the bulk is the same.
but you probably, if you go driving down Green Street or walking down Green Street, they're gonna be so far behind this that you're probably not really gonna be able to see it.
Is there some kind of rendering where if you were walking down Green Street, and we looked at that complex there, how that's related to,
Like a 3D.
yeah, like a 3D still, yeah, that's.
Page 7.
Page 7.
I don't think.
Also, that the
Yeah, but-
tower,
but-
thank you for number
I mean, this
in
looks-
So we
that
know
case.
that, we know that these buildings on Green Street are not as tall as that, so.
You're right.
That's a rendering, I can.
Right, but that's what we're asking is,
Yeah.
So that is to scale, so if you ask me which building, I can specifically point you. Which one you're looking for.
So this is not to scale here, right?
No.
No.
right, they're not to scale at all, so you can't really.
But that's not scale either.
No.
No, neither of them are to scale, that's what I'm asking. If you see something to scale, a 3D, that would be helpful.
But all I can say is, I just think 4 stories are too high. That's all there's to it. It blocks out the historic value of the things behind it.
Oh.
And it just sets up a set of mass that's just too much for just that neighborhood. Maybe it's not too much for 27 and for 31 and for Main Street, but it's just too much for Main Street. Just, to me, that's
All
the
the
way
way
I
up
look
on
at
that
it.
street are high. So that's a.
All right, and then secondly, I guess before I skip along, are we in agreement that we would really like to see them do something with that massing above the 3rd floor? Some sort of either dropping the building into the ground a little bit in order to achieve your 4 floors, like they do next door.
Go back. 3 feet is nothing,
3 feet is really nothing.
nothing, so let's talk, if there was a whole floor down and 2 or 3 up top, above ground level, I could understand that. But I think it will overwhelm the area. And I kinda know what I'm talking about. I live a block and a half away from it. I only have lived there 42 years, so
He's a neighbor.
Still see.
I can see it.
All right, well, can we say we had a consensus on this to recommend to the city? And frankly, I'm happy to go talk to the Board of Zoning. If they're pushing this towards a fourth,
Planning commission.
planning commission rather, they're pushing this towards a fourth floor. If they had a 3-story option to begin with and they're pushing them to a 4-story, I am happy to go.
Sorry, go back, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you had mentioned sending pictures, I put them all into a document here, if you wanted that.
I
To
would
be
love to
shown.
be able, can we show that, because that really goes into the next topic, but
Yeah, but
just for the record, the 5 of us are in consensus about the height and massing of the 4th floor being problematic and not recommended for the historic district. Okay, so next, I went and took a bunch of pictures of the facades of other townhouse type of historic homes. And I hope they will be reflected in the facade of this. I understand this is a breath of fresh air. That's not what historic districts want. They want seamless compatibility, something sympathetic, not something ajar, not something a breath of fresh air, and not something modern. But they want something that will make this not stick out. And so I have a whole series of facade photos that you can take design from. And to be real honest, when I first saw this, I wasn't 100% alarmed because I thought, wow, this is a CAD program, they're just popping in buildings. They don't really mean to put black metal balconies on like that. Certainly, that would not be how you approach a historic building. But as I'm hearing it, I'm thinking, wait a minute, maybe this is really what they intend, is to put a modern facade in a historic district, and that just doesn't fit. So let's go through the pictures I took. And it should be just inspiration, nothing is directorial, just inspiration. So those are your neighbors. And you can see there's a mix, it's not boxy, there's triangles and there are angles and there are porches on everybody, but there's no balconies. So, and this is the folks in the back, and they're gonna have a view of your backyard, which is fine, because actually most of the houses in Westminster are towards the main streets with backyards that are functional, with parking and yards for work. So that almost matches what you pretty much have presented here. So this is some serpentine looks, which breaks up some of that boxiness. Again, lower porches, no balconies.
Down the street.
unfortunately, the ordering wasn't pretty when I put them in, so they might be jumbled up and down.
I was driving all over trying.
Because this is on West Main Street.
That's Main
That's
Street.
Main Street.
This is again the same serpentine looks that you saw in Green Street in the last view. Again, 3 stories is max, no balconies. This one does not have any kind of porching. A neighbor does, but this one doesn't. It breaks up the boxiness. Okay, this is right on Main Street. You would call this sort of townhousey look. There is enough visual interest. There's a lot of different, it's not all boxy. So the look has got an archway over the windows, archways over the doors. There's the bowed bay window to be seen. Again, it breaks up that boxy look. This one's also on Main Street, and it's got varied looks, triangles, it's got a recessed mansard roof, and it's got relief on the front, and it allows for 3 floors. This one is on Court Street, 39 Court Street, and again, it has varied looks, it's got 3 floors only, there's no balconies involved, and it's nice and close to the main route, and it's got, varied images, it's not square upon square.
Well, to have that, notice on the right side the roof goes down, and the back. Nothing is square, like here would be a square
Yeah.
And no
second
flat.
floor, third floor. Those are only partially rooms.
Now, in most historic districts, they don't recommend you copy things, like go out and literally measure. Just that you have a flavor that supports the historic stuff.
Right.
So you don't have to go out and do a slate mansard roof with the two portals on the top. It doesn't need to be copied. But you could do something sort of mimicked, sort of varied, and something that slants off. Those backyards all have parking and have yards for work that would mimic what you're proposing. Okay, next. This is also on Green Street, I believe. This is more modern and it's still considered historic, doesn't have as much character as the older pieces. And I would hope you would at least achieve this much varied, you know, roofing, varied images, so it's not box upon box. This is a great image of a row living. This is, however, I think it's a single building. It's got 3 entrances. I don't know how it's divided within it, but again, it's got a porch on the front, no balconies. Actually, balconies in town are just not heard of. Just not heard of. Go on. All right, this is Main Street again. Again, it's got serpentine front, it's got some triangles to view, it's got a bay window on the end to add interest. It's got a couple of porches. There's ways of enjoying the outdoors, but no balconies. I think we may have already visited that at West Main Street.
Different angles.
Different angle. All right, so this is Green Street again, one of your neighbors, and again, it's a little boxy, but it's truly historic. It's got a nice big porch where neighbors can meet and talk. It's got angular belt bay windows, but it's not box upon box.
It's just some a
That was
big
it.
confusion in the product type. These are not, they're not row homes. This is an apartment building. You don't walk in, you don't have a front porch for every, you know, it's not these products. It's a completely different product type.
But that's what this is trying to mimic, are row homes, and townhomes are what I heard tonight.
No, it's not, it's an apartment building. The first floor has direct access to the street, but all the other buildings are through inside elevators, access into each floor.
Mhm.
It's not a row home.
So I could not find an apartment complex within the historic district at all. So to me, this kind of housing, as far as townhomes or whatever, is as massed as you get in a historic district.
I just, you kept saying row homes. I just want to make sure if anybody's watching, it's not that product type, like a tall 4-story. I thought that's what you were thinking.
I
This is,
was, because in some ways we don't get into the details of the interior. We're more worried about the exterior.
That's right, yeah, so you gotta think that it's not a family walking in and have 4 flights of stairs and then going up.
Right.
You're on one floor, like any other apartment building.
I think, but you know, that you can take some features, some historic features to soften up the box, you know,
This looks like a big box.
that's what we're asking, right?
Yeah.
Not, it
Yeah,
looks,
I mean, interior, how it functions. Whatever, you can have people living in a 3-foot line for 50 feet, that's okay by us. But the exterior really has to support the historic neighborhood.
But
And the
the,
historic neighborhood nowhere has a big apartment complex.
but the exteriors that you're looking at.
Yeah.
Is as important as the interior, but the front facade of a row home is gonna have different elements and different design functions that an apartment building can't do. If you have
So
this-
you're telling me it's impossible to achieve a look on the outside of the rest of the neighborhood in order to function interior, then we may have an incompatible use of having an apartment complex in historic district. I believe that you can work on the exterior and have it appear to be like the rest of the housing in the residential portions of the historic district. But if I'm hearing that's impossible,
No, I just,
then it's inappropriate.
I've always took development in historic district is that it is an apartment building, they're not row homes, to make it appear like a row home, even though it's not.
No, we're just
Does
asking you
no
to take
form the
elements
function.
from
Yeah.
it. So, I mean, if you, in Frederick, where you live near, right? So those brand new apartment complexes and row homes that are out of the city. I mean, there are some kind of like that, but then there are also ones that look like that you could put them downtown, except they're tall. Because they're out of the city.
They're 202 condominiums, they're
And they hold those quote historic elements from whatever time, I mean, they did that, and they're, you know, so I mean, I don't know why they can't, that is so
In
hard.
It's built
DC,
differently.
This is cheaper.
in DC, you have to preserve the exteriors. Inside, do what you want, but the exteriors have to be preserved. So whether you have a nuclear plant or an apartment complex or townhouses, you shouldn't be able to walk by and know. You should walk by and think, oh, this is a nice part of the historic district. This doesn't pollute the district, it supports it.
And you can probably see from those photos, before there was a historic district commission, all the mistakes that have been made that we're trying to clean up and not make more.
So I guess the challenge to you is it even possible? Do you see that as a possibility of revamping the front so that it has the appearance of being consistent with the historic district to a supportive sense, not to the inch or, column, but to a sense of support?
Definitely go into.
I would love for you to be able to just take those photos and consider applying it as an exterior facade that would somehow support these townhomes that we have. Or however you wanna call it, are they called townhomes historically?
These are apartments.
Apartments, these are apartments. Yeah, but yeah, it's just the facade. I mean, that's all they're asking is just the facade, soften up the facade, you know? That's it. It's not, don't put the elevator in.
Yeah, we're not
I
saying
mean,
you
that
can't have
kind
an
of looks,
elevator.
reminds me of a college dorm, or a nice modern college dorm. I mean, I like it if it was on a college campus somewhere, but, or like a medical campus. It reminds me of Hershey. I mean, so it does not really, that type does not belong with that.
The way it's presented is in conflict with the historic district, and that's what we don't want. We don't need something mimicking or copying, but we need something sympathetic. And when you get to that block, you're gonna see that and know. That's not historic. And we don't want anyone to think that's a good idea. We want people to go by and go, oh, that's a lovely building, that's a lovely home, that's another lovely building. And sort of go by and be at peace with it, not judge. So where do we go next?
I would need some type of recommendation from you to the planning commission. So we
Absolutely,
can attach it to the planning commission staff report.
absolutely. So I think the two things I hear the most is height and mass and facade.
Just so we could send,
Sure. Well, we've got examples for it right now,
right?
you know? And
You may not be familiar with the ones in Frederick that you were referencing.
But that's what I was looking at. I mean, we could send you that. I mean, there's like all the Frederick.
Just to give him some inspiration as to what you're thinking.
We're just suggesting you soften it up a little bit.
lower it, see if you can dig down a floor, a whole floor.
I don't think they're gonna do that. Nobody's gonna
Well, let 'em
wanna
try.
live in a basement
Let
apartment.
him try, don't tell him what he can't do. You
Well, I'm
just-
sure physically you can do that, but who's gonna rent a basement apartment? I mean, it's-
I rented for a year a place called Courthouse Square in Charleston. Now, they were, I'm talking 1980s. They were 1,700 apartment and the basement unit was, I had a basement unit. So it's not about people not wanting it.
Yeah.
It
be a
was
price
in
point.
the heart of Houston.
I was born in a basement apartment with no windows. I mean, people live there. It's possible. That was in Chicago, but people do live in basement units and they are affordable.
Well, people do, and then you could have a walkout maybe in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived in those.
Well, no, because what you're really looking at is two different buildings for the central, if you look at the floor plan. Those people on the front don't have a walkout on the back, they walk into a hallway.
Well, cause it's an apartment, I mean, that's up for them to
Yeah,
do all that.
that's.
We're just
I'm
saying, make it,
fight with.
that's what we're saying,
That's
make it
their
free.
struggle. You guys getting paid to struggle that. Let them struggle. All I can say is it's too high. How's that? Simple. All right, so, and then, the other recommendation of making sure the facades are essentially in line with the rest of Green Street. And I think we are sure they probably are, but I'd like to make sure that's a recommendation.
Just have a little curve somewhere here or there, a little curve, just a little bit.
But has some texture, you know, got a lot of historic texture to work with.
I like the fact you're gonna landscape it, like a lot of landscaping and trees, I like that. I mean, I hope that's what that is.
So have you guys got your recommendations?
Be nice if we can get a letter from you.
Yes,
explaining
can I
this.
work on that maybe with y'all tomorrow or something? Happy to. And I'm happy to go talk to them because I'm sure these things don't, I'm sure they don't drive around to make these determinations, you know,
Yeah,
with this in mind. Okay. Was there anything we missed? Only 3 things, could be worse. Think about it that way, it could be much worse. Only 3
Well,
things.
I appreciate your time and your comments. and
I
we will
honestly
look into
think
it.
ultimately it would be nice to have some housing in that vacant lot.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, it's all a good thing, we don't wanna see things not happen. It's not a not in my backyard situation, it's just gotta be, I don't wanna notice it in my backyard. So. Do we need some sort of motion to make it official? Or wait till I write the letter?
yeah, I mean, it's just a recommendation, I think it's just, I guess the motion would be the chair. If you wanna make a motion, I recommend it's to the point of having the chair provide a letter to the planning commission addressing the items of the specific discussed tonight.
We're not asking to make you look like Williamsburg, just.
Yeah, I'm just supporting what we found.
Like going through.
So Columbia.
There, but I also recommend maybe we attend their meeting
Yes.
and explain what we are talking about. Not, I don't mean that city staff can't do that, but I think for us to be on the record that we are doing that and our recommendation and why we are recommending that is a part of the minutes for both commissions.
When is the meeting?
Yeah.
September 19th. Thursday. The third Thursday of September.
You might have to carry the water in this. Like share, I'll write the letter and all that, I have a meeting at my house. I can't very well.
What time is the meeting?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
My meeting. If I could be there for a 6:45, I gotta let people in my house for my meeting.
Can you switch it?
We can't have old people meeting after 7:00.
Well,
We're meeting at-
come and then you can scooch. You can scooch then.
And we're meeting at 45 West Main.
And I would recommend all the commissioners come. Because I would like to make sure all our commissioners here. And it's 6:00.
45. West Main. Under here. in case the public comes out, we didn't think this room was large enough, so it's kind of.
September 19th, is what I heard.
Am I getting that right? Let me see.
Welcome.
Then like.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, thank you for your comments, and definitely going
You were
to
the
be-
right person for this, by the way. Not all defensive or anything. You're the right person to come out and
No,
say.
I'm here to listen to you guys, it doesn't work out the same.
We may not be the best, but we're probably not the worst.
Yeah, this is just getting started.
Yeah.
It is the 19th.
We don't need senators.
I need to give you a sign and sign an affidavit to place on the property, so I had to shoot it real quick, then it's this post the
Thank you so
property.
much. Thank you.
So much, really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Melissa, you'll share those photos with the staff.
I will, yeah.
Thank you.
This is over on Wood Street.
Hey, those are 19, yeah, those two times. Great. And I could accept. I'll be ready.
License just changed the name.
All right, let's segue into old business. So, demo procedure checklist. I want to thank Kathy last month for sitting down and doing her best, and I want to thank Chris Amaduri for sitting down and doing her best. And I think we're getting close, guys. I think we're getting close. How do we feel about this? I mean, I suppose we could use it and see what happens. Yes,
Can
Melissa.
I offer a comment?
Sure.
I so appreciated what everybody did to work on this. I apologize because the actual printout did not include the addendum that I had included, so I apologize, Chris. I'm a jury. Your great example was not included in your packet tonight, but I do think it should be included in the final rendition. And then I kind of just compiled it to sort of mimic our tax credit application, so
Good.
I'm hopeful that you guys think it's clear. But I'm happy to keep working, we can keep working if needed.
So here's my thought. You know, we can change things, nothing's carved in stone. Could we try this and see if we get a better product? And, you know, if in a year or two, we're still getting crummy demo stuff, and there still isn't enough direction, then we work on it again, but give it a little whack for a little while. What do you guys think?
Yeah, what, this, I understand this, what this last page here.
That's a
That's a whole nother conversation about a different topic.
Oh, okay, oh,
Yep,
sorry.
different topic, good question.
Oh, okay.
What do you think? I would entertain a motion to accept this, post it on our city web, add Chris's stuff to it.
And you can add more to that also, that was just, they were just the sources that I use, I know there are more at the Historical Society, for instance, but
To me, this is a start and let's
Yes.
get started.
don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
That's
I
right.
know, I have to remind you.
What do you guys think? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that we accept and use this form as is until further notice.
Second.
I hear a second from Kevin. Any other discussion? I mean, this was hard to revise, but if we have to in a year or so, we don't get that many demo permits, but I hope this will help improve the documentation situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the hard part is, we did the hard part, you know, if we have to revise it from there, we'll know what we need to revise because of how the applications are.
We ready to vote? All in favor? Consensus, I don't even have to ask if anyone's against, thank you. Well, this is a nice piece of work, I think we've been talking about doing this for a while, haven't we? So thank you, everybody, for your hard work. Okay, next, celebrating America's Fall History Expo. That is coming up on October 5th. I don't think we have another meeting from now until then,
Should. Couple days before.
a couple days before, okay. I know that it's a short time period, for the expo. It's like 9 to 12 or something.
Yeah, it's only 3 hours.
But it would sure be nice if we had at least 2 people there. Do we have anybody? Kathy and I already volunteered.
Yeah, we can do it.
I've already put in the paperwork, but I'd love to have.
Where is he?
Oh, you're busy on Saturdays.
Oh, I mean, we could talk off, yeah, but yeah,
I mean, it's such a short time frame. I hate to break up everybody's Saturday for an hour or something.
Well, it's up to you all. If you want Kathy and I to just cover it, I'm just always.
it's only 3 hours?
Yeah.
I would love,
All right, well, let's see how it happens, but we know we're covered. Lisa, will you be providing us with what you always do, the
Some
swag
swag, yes, I'd be happy to.
and the historic walks and the paperwork?
Right, I will plan all of those things in advance to coordinate with you. I do have a question for you tonight. We had discussed last meeting about getting a squeeze brick.
Yep.
And I have an example of one that was found with a rendering on it, and I wanted your thoughts. And so this says saving every brick for Westminster, Maryland. Another idea brought up by staff was saving historic Westminster brick by brick.
I like that.
Yeah.
I said, the first one sounds like you're gonna throw a brick at Westminster.
Oh, you're right. Oh, boy, that would not be the right message.
Well, it's a soft brick.
So, yeah, so it's, can
I like
line
that.
them up. There were some jokes shared, but okay, so the second one, general consensus. I don't think we need a motion for this.
That's cool. We could stand it and just stand up on the table.
Yeah, we can work ourselves right out. Yeah. Good.
And the throwing was fun up, when you're watching football or your favorite team and losing,
Throw it at
you have a nice soft brick.
throw it at the officials.
I was-
Start holding.
I was told there'd be enough time to order these if I got it in tomorrow to be in time, so I will work on
That's
that.
great.
Thank you, Melissa. Aren't you
Good job finding that.
Good. Okay, great. All right, so our historic commission implementation plan is swimming along. Do you have any reports on the RFP for the survey plan?
It was sent into the state and I haven't heard back from them.
Let's bother them.
Yeah, so we can check in and see. So the good news is it has been sent into the state, so things are moving along. But
So- I keep finding historic resources to add to this for a contractor, and I have a box in my dining room that's just for this, so. That poor guy better be ready to break his back and carry the resources out with him,
or girl.
or girl. All right, if there's anything we can do, if you need me to give him a call, I'm happy to.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
The 250th. I don't know, we've broken a small dam on that this month. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Do you want to talk about plaques?
I have to research the pricing.
Okay, we did, however, come up, well, not we, Kathy Beatty here, came up with a list of houses conceivably could get a plaque on them.
oh,
Can you
number would be
believe that? Do
good,
you want to talk about that, Kathy? Because I'm taking the.
Well, I wasn't sure what,
It's in here.
since I'm sort of new to this, I wasn't sure exactly what plaque was going to say, so I didn't know what time period was really the cutoff. Because you only have one that was actually here during the American Revolution.
That's why
So
we're not
kinda
gonna be that strict.
narrows your plaque project. So some of these may be too recent. But like the Bank of Westminster, which was built around 1819, is a little bit late, but the bank started during the War of 1812. It moved out from Baltimore to get away from the coastline. So the institution started, the building was a couple years later. I'm not sure what criteria you're using, you may need to look at some of these.
So the criteria we talked about in the last year or so was to say that the American Revolution didn't really end until the War of 1812 did.
Other than that peace treaty in 1783, that.
But nobody paid attention to it, nobody paid attention to that peace treaty, that's why we went back to war in 1812.
And the other thing I wasn't sure of, for example, the only building that we know was here during the American Revolution is not within the historic district. So the question was, is it the city of Westminster or is it just within the historic district? How far out could I go? And I put the Hawk Barn on here, which is out at the Farm Museum. That one is problematic because it's not on its original site,
Right,
so,
moved.
you know, some of these, you're gonna have to review all of these and think about what are the criteria that you're really looking at for the plaques.
Kathy brings up a really good point that I think we could discuss and decide tonight. And that is, I had hoped there'd be enough in the historic district to make this program a go. But as I see the list, I really think there's just not enough within the historic core. But to me, that doesn't scotch the idea because we can celebrate the 250th throughout the whole city. I think to me, that's just cricket, that's just fine. As long as we determine that, you know, as a group, that's fine. Westminster celebrating the 250th doesn't have to be in the historic district. How do you guys feel about that?
I think it's reasonable.
Mhm.
You know, if it's,
Yeah.
if there's a structure that's, you know, eligible, then it's eligible. And it's within the, well, kind of the city limits, so.
We have also determined that we will be of assistance to the historic structures outside of the historic district. And to me, recognize them with a plaque sends a message that we care about buildings outside of the historic district. To me, there's actually a plus going on. So, this list might vary, but I think this will give you pricing
Mhm.
options, so you know we're not buying 30 anymore.
Yeah, the number, yeah.
We're down to what, 15 maybe?
Mhm.
And what we're saying on the plaque is gonna be the same at every location.
Oh, okay.
Celebrating 250th in the historic Westminster, something very basic like that.
Oh, okay.
We're not gonna be saying individual histories of each building, but through our historic survey, they should be able to look that up.
Yeah, I put the CARR numbers on here, so if people wanna look them up, they should be able to do that online. And I
That is
think
so helpful.
the Hawk Barn is the only one that didn't have a CARR file.
So that is something to talk about. The Hawk Barn was relocated. So is that something we can put a plaque on?
Still the original structure, right?
Yeah, but not anywhere near its original location, so that's why I wasn't,
Where is it?
it's on the farm.
Oh,
It's the one that they
Oh.
took apart and relocated and reconstructed there, which is why I put it on the list, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable with including that since it's not on its original location. You can't really say it was here in Westminster during this period.
Well, if it wasn't within the vicinity of Westminster, then it wasn't in Westminster, even though it's old enough.
Right.
So, I mean,
So I put it on there because it's old enough, but
how about an honorable mention?
how about you get to tell the Farm Museum that we're not putting their building on the flag list.
Also, here's an interesting thought. Kind of line on that line. How about if you have a concerned citizen, they want a 250-year plaque to honor everything? Could we come up with a cost and let them buy through us? That way, you are then expanding the celebration. Also, some people will like that kind of thing.
So that would be more of a commemoration of the commemoration, which I think has to look different than the plaque that we're supplying at our cost. I mean, this is really authentic, whereas the other is celebratory. I think they really should look very different, but we should look into it because people will want it. I'll get one for my house.
We could build on that, but maybe just do this as a first step and then build upon it instead of trying to do everything at one time.
Now, we need to look at what the city will allow for purchase and non-purchase, you know. For this, I'm assuming we'll use our regular scheduled funds for these plaques. And since there's less than 30, we'll definitely have enough money. But when we're talking about plaques people can purchase, there might be some legal limit of what we can do with the city on that. You know, I don't know how many.
My thought would be. We wouldn't go ahead and buy any, only if they order them. So we should know exactly. We want 42 additional ones because they already committed. And that's our money, so it's basically a war. We are taking in funds for something they are buying.
Grace, would you look into this?
Yeah.
And also, it occurs to me, we may be using old thoughts of plaques and stuff. There may be a newer way that once we set a template, citizens can directly order their own. Pay for it themselves, the money doesn't come into the city, it goes straight to the producer of those plaques. And, you know, the plaque on my house that says my house is part of the National Register listing for the district, I got it off the internet. It's just a struck plaque on bronze. So it's possible we could set up with a vendor, something that says, you know, Westminster celebrating 250. And people can purchase it directly and independently. But we don't have to be involved with the money or the fights or anything.
Right, good idea. Properties within the district are on the National Register, and are they all marked?
We don't know, because we have a very old National Register form. They didn't have a listing of structures that were contributing. They did not have an independent list. They had a narrative with lots of them listed. They didn't do an independent list at that time. That's something we're addressing with
So
our
yours is
grant.
not listed separately, it's just listed as part of the district?
It's part of the narrative. It doesn't have its own specific
Oh, okay.
contributing resource listing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's very awkward. In fact, before we could search PDFs, I was pulling my hair out with that listing. All right, anything else on plaques, and Grace will look into that. Great, thank you Kathy for all this work.
You're welcome.
It gives us a base. We may still come up with one or two others we don't know anything about. I think there's one on the corner of Main Street. I've been in the guy's basement and it's a log cabin base for sure. And I think it's now the oldest house in Westminster now that the England house is down. It's right at the corner of Church and Main on the opposite side of the Tremaine building. And if you walk around in his basement, it looks old. And I know the landowner pretty well. He probably will let us do it once. I don't think he's gonna let us do a revolving door of going in and out of his basement. But I think if we can go down there once and report it and come to a decision as to whether or not that house looks like it is original and can we pull it back. It's got a newer envelope. And that's why it probably didn't show up for Christopher Weeks either. You know, we could go through a lot of basements. That would be fun. Okay. The next thing on the 250th, I thought we could talk about and perhaps settle this evening. Did you get those logos?
Oh, yes,
You put those logos up, Kathy? Baby did work with logos. As I asked her to.
let's see.
So you asked for them.
I asked for them. Kathy, do you want to talk us through? We'll just show the ones that you've looked at and then.
Yeah, basically
Sure,
what I did was I just went online and did a search for 250th anniversary US and variations on that to find what kind of logos people are using and how localities are taking the national one
That's right.
and appending themselves to it. So after a while, it got really repetitive, but yeah, people looked at like 200 or 300 of them, it's like, okay, seen it. So there's two that, there apparently was an earlier one that says just says America 250. And some people are still using that, and it may be that they already had that logo and they weren't gonna bother to switch when the second one, which people tend to call the ribbon design, came out. And then there were a lot of them with that. Some states have a state commission, like Pennsylvania And so they have one, and then every county just puts their name below it, so they all look the same, you know, yeah, that's the ribbon one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I honestly, I really like it.
Looks like the bicentennial, it reminds me of this 76
Yeah, and it's
bicentennial.
taking off some of that. And so people, then I think I had some examples of ways people used it.
Oh, sorry, this is. Hold on, let me pull those up. Yeah, all of these, bars are confusing me. The local tests, Ken?
No, that first
This one
document
has something else? Okay.
should have a lot of pages in it.
Okay, well, let's flip.
The logo test is what I love, but let's go through how we got to
Oh, I'm
what
gonna
I love.
scroll instead of click the arrow this
Oh,
time.
okay.
Let's try that.
Okay, so that's that, and then.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Capital.
There's our ribbon 250. So again, you can see
North
how
Carolina.
taking that, the Wright Brothers site is taking the 250th from the.
Well, I think
National.
that was the North Carolina State Commission.
Oh, that makes sense.
And that was, I think that was National Archives or something like that. This is the earlier version, and a lot of groups are still using that as well.
Yeah.
So it's
Just.
Remember the
spider crab?
It's like pixelated, yeah. You just
keep
stuck
scrolling
American.
down.
What was my
Is
brain?
that the end?
No, there's more. That's the Pennsylvania one.
That's.
And then I think the next one will show you how one of the counties does that. And so each county just does it. This is New York State's. This was Indiana.
It's like the Olympics.
Yeah.
South Carolina's state one. And the DAR went both ways, so there's their. They couldn't decide.
That's a very big logo.
The first DAR one, I like that with the first DAR logo,
Yeah.
which was different than
Then this one.
this one.
Maryland, I did not find a state.
Oh, I thought they did. They do. It's just MD 250.
Oh, okay, 'cause it didn't come up in any of the,
Back to me, just send.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can.
found this, which is part of their Maryland celebration. And so the states in Maryland seem to, or the counties seem to be just kind of creating their
That's
own.
very different.
Yeah, that's hard for.
I could see that easily have been the Carol one.
Yeah.
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 A lot of our.
Is that the
Our
end?
communities.
No. Okay.
We have
Postage stamp.
2 more pages after this.
Oh my goodness.
Actually found a few.
Postage stamp.
Yeah, it doesn't, yeah.
So that's the same Washington County one, just a variation on it.
So I gotta toss in something practical. You go up, Melissa, to the previous one, like that one. You see, it doesn't have any background, no photos. It would look good in black and white. There's some things you kind of have to think about with logos. And you're
Right.
not always gonna have a printer that can do color stuff. And I would envision us using this more on our agendas, more on our, any letters that go out to citizens, things like that. If you get a logo like Washington County, it's never gonna look good reproduced. And it's certainly not gonna look good black and white.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we might consider keeping things simpler
Mhm.
with little background.
And so that was an example of one this is from Massachusetts, how they didn't use the official 250, but they sort of played off of that with, I'm assuming that their Minuteman there is sort of their town logo. This one I just thought, I like, but the 250 coloring is much too busy.
Yeah, it could never, it'll never scale down to a letterhead.
Dreams.
And surprisingly, there's another organization out there that calls itself Celebrating America, so I just threw that one in.
Well, that's interesting.
I think that's it.
Can we go to the first one?
So let's look at what she proposes, which looks a lot like the first one. Can we look at that?
Okay, yes, let's go
Well,
back.
let's go see if great minds think alike. I won't be surprised.
I like the DAR one though, the next one.
I did too, but I think that's. Drum roll. Oh, so the only suggestion I would have on this is rather than use a photograph which won't copy well, we use the artist rendering that Dean Camlin did for us.
Well, that was what I could find on the internet, so I'm assuming that the city actually has an official photograph or drawing of the clock tower.
We do, and we used it over the years.
But that's what I could find on the internet, and the idea was just to give you something to look at to start taking it apart and making suggestions.
It's like thumbprint behind it.
Yeah, that's making me dizzy, sorry.
I think of cash money.
So my question, yeah, is the first one with the ribbon one, my only suggestion would be, can you make it, that's more like a tomato red, can you make it a cherry red, like a
That's the
true
red
blue red?
is the official one.
Is that the official one? Okay, cause it looks a little orangey to me. Or is that just me?
I think it.
It is a little bit, but
I'll see.
but that's what it is, so.
That's what it is. That is, yeah, you're right.
Okay.
What's in there one you showed earlier, but in that big in the left top, just a battery cut 250 by itself.
That's the national logo.
Yeah, that's what you got.
It's already taken.
Okay. Question, could we buy flags for that, for Main Street? That would be, I think, I love simple.
That's a good idea.
We could like alternate US flag, 250th US flag, 250 or something like that.
Yes,
Could you look into the cost of getting us both flags and how many we've made?
sure.
Thank you.
I don't know how many we have, but I would think the city would know.
Well, we just go down Main Street and count those days.
I thought it had my last, I do have a problem. If we want to stick to the clock, that interferes in my nap time.
Well, we'll register that with the authorities, Kevin. So could we go back to that preferred one with the clock tower? So I guess to me, guys, I think I would suggest we consider using the artwork that we used in years gone by on our historic district of the clock tower. And it be the rendered artwork rather than a color photo, which is never gonna look good. I mean, when I think of a logo, I think of it this big, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna be shrunk down and what's it gonna look like on a Facebook page or a website? But as I said, that's what I could grab off the internet. I wanted something there and so I just grabbed that. I figured the city would have its own
Well,
approved artwork already.
we do from Dean Camlin. It's a matter of going through the records and finding it.
I was gonna say, we could be a little more organized in finding that particular, because staff come and go and people save files and different people, and those things are not always
It's everywhere.
communicated. Yeah,
Maybe
so,
I can look too.
sure,
That-
always accept your help.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
So you were suggesting to get flags for Main Street, and I'm sure you've noticed the Be Kind stroll and the flags. Were you thinking of getting the ones that look like anything that we decide here?
Yeah, something that's clearly 250th.
Like America 250 Westminster, Maryland, or just America 250th?
Mm-hmm. Get it even simpler.
Yeah.
Might already
that'd
be
be
an American,
Yeah, there might already be some, Kevin. You might be able to find something.
Oh, yeah.
there might already be an American
There you go.
flag out there somewhere that you can buy.
Yeah, that would be super cheap. Then we wouldn't have to get it.
Any customization. Yeah.
Right, I think this is the best time to start looking at grants that
Yes,
we might need to look into.
definitely,
We just need our plan.
definitely. Definitely. So can we ask the city their advice about flags? Like, are there rules? People don't put flags up, the city puts those flags up. So are there rules about what could be hung? I know that US flags really are not supposed to be flown in the dark. That's disrespectful.
Yeah.
But, you know, how do those other flags get put up, those honor the vet things and what have you?
But if you went with, you know, a pull down bunting rather than an actual American flag, then there are no, it doesn't, they're all under the flag code and you can leave them
I love that.
24 hours.
But back to the city question, what are the rules you guys stick with? Or who's the rule maker?
Public Works installs the signs, and I'm sure there's something to the height and how far they can drop down. So vehicles and trucks and other things don't hit them. But we have those banner signs that, you know, for the veterans, and I'm not sure if we're looking at something like that versus something hanging over. But we can look into that to see which is preferred.
Which is preferred by the city, because it's gonna take manpower to put them up, and can you take those veteran guys down, or are they up forever?
Yeah, that's the Carroll County Veterans Independence Project. They agree, this is just a good conversation to start with them. So we actually were reached out this week by another banner company asking about mid-due banners for communities at no cost, but because they ask for advertisements from the businesses of the community. So I had already reached out to our superintendent for the streets department, and he also made a mention about our parking lots. So there are lamp posts there that could be utilized, something to think about too. Not just that, so, you know, if there was a reason, if there was already a program for the veterans, but we're talking 2026, I presume, for this
Yeah, so
rollout. Yeah. Because they accept applications early on, you know, I'm sure they already know who's going next year, if banners are being reprinted.
Next year's 2025.
Exactly, so we're ready. So we can talk to Steve Strasberg and learn more about it.
I think you could share a pole, you can still have a veteran on one, because you have two flags on a pole, we can have veteran on one and maybe 250th, but we can talk, so.
That's true, we have it now.
Yeah,
So, I guess that's something we're specifically asking Melissa or Mark to do. Melissa!
Mark you can ask Mark and then he can delegate it to me any old day. Yeah,
so yeah, whichever one you wanna
it
go.
doesn't matter.
All right, so that's good, but will you still look, Kevin, and see if the 250th, you know, America sells pre-made flags, cause maybe I'd get one for my house too, you know, if we can do that, I kind of have some fun with that.
Daughters of the Revolution have a 4x6 flag that you can purchase. I've been looking for others and just quickly, I'm hoping somebody out there has to.
it's gonna start, yeah.
Yeah,
In fact, the National Commission might have somebody who's selling their merch.
Yeah, everybody's got merch, I'm sure. So, but can we agree this is basically what we want with the artwork that Melissa and I are gonna find? Dean Camlin did give it to us very generously. We got it somewhere.
Was it something that he drew? Okay.
Yep, he drew it, and so it was on like when we made folders for city council, we had, you know, Westminster Historic District Commission, and that was part of, I mean, you didn't even notice, probably on the old tax credit information sheets that is on there. It's just, it used to be on everything that gave out to the public. So now we have something new. Okay. Anything more on logos? Cause I'd like to take a vote and be set on this plus artwork. What do you guys think? That's another thing done tonight. We're moving at blazing speed on this 250.
which one did you guys pick?
This one,
You want this one?
The artwork, not
with the artwork.
But with the artwork?
not.
Do you want to reference when I saw other ones mention when the city was established? Do you want
Date.
the date it
The
was
year.
established or,
Too much.
okay,
Let's keep it simple.
I mean, it's gonna be a flag up there waving around.
It's a logo, it's not a mission statement.
Yeah,
But it kind of shows we were established prior to, longer.
That's true.
I think it would be 261 years.
But that's
I think
too
it's
many
50.
numbers.
Technically, we weren't established in 1764.
We were founded.
You know,
We were
you
like-
have.
We were
Somebody found.
We were founded as Westminster, but we were incorporated later.
yes.
So, I had that same problem with the Westminster Cemetery. We have people put in, so we call it established in the 1770s, but we weren't incorporated till 1864. We had 100 years behind us at that point when we incorporated, so I never use that term, just say established.
For down the road, we have to, could we get bumper stickers with that?
More merch,
That's,
Yeah, more.
more merch.
Yeah, I mean, once you've got your logo, you can use it on anything you want.
Magnets?
I was gonna say the vinyl stickers on water bottles are very popular too,
Yeah.
pretty cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, good, let's entertain a motion to accept this, so we don't come back to this topic. Do I have a motion?
I move that we use this logo, but with the drawing of the clock tower.
Second,
I hear a second from Kevin, who's on a blue streak of seconding tonight.
Mhm.
All in favor?
I,
No one's opposed, so there you go, we got our marching orders. I feel like we've got so much done tonight. Yes. Okay, I have a little report on the SAR, the Sons of the American Revolution. There is something by the William G. Pomeroy Foundation that's doing a Patriots Trail across the US. And they are putting signs where patriots are buried in cemeteries. And last year, I saw this, I worked with the William G. Pomeroy Foundation to get the women's vote sign in front of the Mary Shellman House on Main Street. And I know it's a process, it's an application, it takes time, but they pay for everything except for the installation, which I felt like we could somehow figure out. Either have this city department or, find money for a contractor to dig this sign. But I had troubles getting a hold of the SAR. And I just sort of randomly was Googling around and I found someone who actually picked their phone up. And he said, well, one reason why you're having troubles is that the state of Maryland does not have a form yet. The program's been in existence for a year, but they've never had an applicant, nor a form. And I said, okay, what do I need to do? Because we have William Winchester in the Westminster Cemetery, and I want to be on that national trail. And he said, well, you'll be the first
Yay.
in Maryland. If you can move them before September 23rd to do something. So I said, what do I need to do? So he said, we need a GPS point of where you want the sign. We need a photo of a cone at the sign location. We need you to reference our paperwork that you have a patriot that's established as a patriot. And our paperwork establishes patriots in the Westminster Cemetery. And I said, patriots? There's two more. Caleb Stanberry and Neff, Henry Neff. We didn't even have them in our paperwork as veterans, let alone patriotic Revolutionary War veterans. We have 3. I have submitted everything they asked for. I'm waiting for their okay so I can submit that same paperwork to Mr. Depot to make sure that sign is okay by everybody else on the planet, but I need the SAR to like it. And as far as I'm concerned, I've done everything I possibly can to get that sign in the ground. But won't that be a cool 250th edition?
Cool.
Be on the map.
Yeah.
We'll be the only ones on the map, we will be the map. In Westminster. For the state of Maryland. So I am super jazzed, and the person I'm working with at the SAR is super wonderful. As for the DAR sign, again, I feel like I've done almost everything I can with the DAR, but I'm not getting there. I think they keep thinking it's 2 years away, and I keep saying, no, that one I need to find money for. That one's gonna cost $5,000. That one I can ask for a mini grant for half the amount. I think I'll get it pretty easily. that one I can ask for, that cuts it down to $2,500. I think I know where I can go for another 1,000. That leaves us $1,500 and the installation fee. I have to come to you guys that well, maybe I'll just cough it up out of my personal pocket. I hate to do that.
We increased your budget, could that, you're hoping to have that done this fiscal year?
Not necessarily within this fiscal year, within this calendar year is going to be the best, if we go to grant funds.
Did the increase from last year's budget carry over to this year's budget?
Mhm.
Alright,
How much do we have?
No, it's this year's fiscal year, we got more money. I requested and we got it. So I think it was, I can't recall what it is, but it has to be within the fiscal year. Or we have to find, maybe it's the flags or some other thing that we can, maybe some of these, everything we're talking about to support the 250th, we should, wouldn't hurt to get it now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wanna be able to spend that money, cause you know, we talked about it and then we don't, and.
We could spend it. I mean, I could purchase it tomorrow. I don't have the matching funds yet. That won't happen till the end of October where that mini grant closes with the Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area. I feel pretty confident I can get it out of that. It happened. But anyway, this DAR sign, as you'll recall, we located it in Belgrove Square, so it's definitely in a public place. And as far as I know, it's definitely still okay with the city. So all the DAR has to do is pull the gun, write the check. I'll need a letter from the city saying that they agree to hosting this sign. Who would sign a letter like that?
we could get
Mayor?
the mayor probably. Do you need the city staff to install the sign?
Not necessarily. It's just fine,
It
so
would be nice to include them though, on the pinpoint location.
it would be great, because that would save us about $1,000 if the city installs it. That's what I paid a contractor to install the one in front of the Shawman House.
So it's $5,000, not including the installation.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's 5,000 for the sign only, not including the post or anything holding it?
It includes the post, but just not the installation.
Okay,
And we can use that effort from the city as part of our match for our mini grant. So if you get,
I
we
think
can
they can handle that.
estimate the cost of that.
If we need concrete footer.
It's one post, right?
I was gonna say, if
It's
any more than that, maybe not.
It's a pole, you
Okay.
make a hole.
it's a nice,
Like putting in a
is it a
fence,
decorative
Yeah,
post?
put it in a fence post.
Is it a decorative post or
No,
just?
It's just a steel
Ugly
post.
steel post. Just a plain old
Maybe
steel
you wanna
post.
Maybe we
upgrade
wanna
that.
upgrade it to a decorative, we can save money on the installation.
Let's continue discussing
Okay.
it, but I do need some kind of estimate from the city so I can include it with my application, because that's part of our match, and it'll make our funding part less. Which is great. It's great.
Okay.
Then lastly, the DRAR ladies can come up with $500 because they have a fund to help pay for this. So they should be that would be great. But anyway, we've got 2 signs coming for the 250th, and I think that's fun. We can do sign unveilings like we did in front of the Showman House, speech buy-in. I'll ask our mayor if she'll come and say some poignant words. Yes.
The Westminster Municipal Band does their concert.
Ah.
What date was that?
That was the last Sunday of August. It's last Sunday.
So it's after the independence. And would that be something we could pair up with out of it by
That'd be
chance?
fun.
It's so nice to have a band there.
Yeah,
They're good.
yeah.
They're really good.
Nothing else, they might send just the color guard and a few words, you know.
Yeah.
Here we
Just
we
put it
could
out there.
certainly
No,
do
and
it.
if you're including it with some other event, you're gonna get a built-in audience too.
Oh,
There's a
yeah.
certain I know they
It's
did
not just gonna be the ladies from the DAR, you're gonna have a bigger mix
bigger mixes.
of people that,
Public.
yeah, if they're coming for the band concert, then you include that as part of it.
I will also say that at the concert, as part of their program, they played the themes from all 5 services. And they asked veterans to stand up when they heard their theme song. So you could see who was in the Air Force and who was in the Army and who was in the Navy. We didn't have any Space Force people.
Oh, I was wondering what that
I
was.
don't even know if they have a Space Force name, but I just know that was a cool thing they were wanting to do.
Star Wars.
Yes, Star Trek.
She said Star Trek, I said Star Wars.
That's what I was thinking in my head.
Okay, all right, so, I think that's the end of my 250th, and I don't have anything more. Does anyone else here have more 250th stuff? We're doing stuff, which makes me feel great. I love getting some decisions done.
It'd be nice if we could have that logo for the history expo, so we could,
It would be nice. Let me see
you know,
what
at least have it on a piece of paper.
Or at least coming soon.
Yeah, coming soon.
Okay.
Yeah, Melissa.
Question for you, for the Liberty tree that's currently in City Hall over here, I'm sorry, yeah, over here, planted. I haven't ordered the sign yet because I was thinking it would be nice to include this logo. You
Definitely,
okay with that? Okay,
Yeah,
definitely.
whenever we get that finalized.
I'd be literally disappointed if you did.
Okay, good, I'm so glad I didn't pull the trigger on that. You haven't signed anything, that helps, be my safeguard. So that was one thing. The other thing is regarding the 250th, the county's group committee that I'm a part of, and including everybody, because we're all a team and we want the public input. There is a meeting December
4th.
yes. In the library, in the large meeting room at 2 p.m. So if you put that on your calendars, the timing is really, it's a daytime, so maybe you have the advance notice, you can take off if you're working or have another commitment, but there will be planned evening activities for public input, I think after this meeting. So the idea is to meet quarterly to check in with everybody and have an opportunity for public input. And this is gonna be more like there's 4 different committees and there might be some breakout sessions.
So did you attend today's 250th meeting?
We did, yes.
Good. Right, I got Laura Bankert's meeting minutes. Have you received them yet? Do you know? Could you send them out to everybody?
Yes, that's fine, yep.
That would be great to share those meeting minutes because
Also, December 2nd, what day of the week is that?
It's December 4th.
Wednesday.
It is a Wednesday. Yeah,
it would be our meeting day. We've met in December, but traditionally we don't meet in December.
And where is that held?
she said it's at the
the
library.
library in their large meeting room here in Westminster.
What time?
This is,
I can,
2
that's
p.m.
at 2 p.m.
we can send, and this can send out an email, it's gonna delegate, for this meeting as well, so everybody has that email as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. I wanted to make it, but I was on the road and I was about to dial in and listen to the Zoom, because you can do that while you're driving. Somebody else called me and
You can only do so much.
Yeah,
Actually, do a
so you
meeting,
went out while you're driving, while you're driving, yeah.
do a meeting invite too, so it's also on your calendar, so maybe that's the better way of doing it, so at least we had the time and location and that meeting invite.
right. Okay, so historic district commissioners, let's ask if we've heard or done anything for the betterment of history in town.
No, but I'll follow up on the signs. Have we heard anything more about signs downtown
City signs, yeah.
that you were updating? And also some properties have signs up, and at one time you talked about meeting with their lawyer. I didn't know if there was any more update on that.
So I made a determination as to whether the signs are allowed or not at certain properties. My determination was appealed. So the appeal has to go to Board of Zoning Appeals, so it stays my action because they're appealing my determination. So following the determination, if I didn't get appealed, I would have moved on to notices of violation. But because they did ask for a determination, that's what led to the determination, which led to the appeal. So again, so I think we are planning a November Board of Zoning Appeals meeting about that appeal case for the signs.
And there was two questions there, wasn't there? Just one question?
That was all I have. Thank you.
No, I don't think I have anything else. Well, you've done a lot of work already. We'll give you a pass.
Okay.
All right, so I actually have been working like a crazy person with Kathy on the Westminster Cemetery. And we're chugging along, but this couple of weeks, we're working on the tours. So we'll have a new tourist amenities at Westminster Cemetery. So we're working on the tours. It's funny how everybody writes their bios differently, and I didn't get a lot of pictures. I have troubles pulling teeth out of folks to get me stuff I need, so it's like herding cats, but it looks like the very first tour that will make it into that package, I'm submitting tonight, and it's the McDaniels tour. So we have prominent people from McDaniels, that McDaniels archivist, and there is a college historian, Jim White, who submitted to me with pictures tonight. When I go home, that's what I'm doing, is sending that in to set up McDaniel tour of the Westminster Cemetery. I've also heard tell that Jim's got 35 other faculty and staff that are buried there that he could add. So it could be sort of an extended tour of principals and then others who are associated with the college, and extra people with the college. But we'll have to see if Jim gets that to me. And I laughed and I said, well, I kind of want pictures of all these faculty and staff, and he says, we do yearbooks. So there's pictures for all of us. So that's going on. Secondly, and this is kind of entirely different for next year. Next year, the Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area is taking on a house and historic house and garden pilgrimage tour.
Is this part of the Maryland House and Garden pilgrimage?
Yes, and because the Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area has Washington County, Frederick County, and Carroll County. They're starting in Washington County, but this is a combined thing. And we're gonna create a booklet with sponsors for the entire heritage area to participate in this Washington County House and Garden Tour. Then it'll come to Frederick, then it'll come to Carroll. So part of me says it's gonna be hard to sell these sponsorships in Carroll County for a Frederick County tour. However, they'll have 2 whole tours down under their belts before they come to us, so they ought to be pretty darn good. And I would like you to consider for next month, the historic district do a sponsorship, like $125 sponsorship, something small, but something to get our name in this statewide book, to say, hey, we support heritage tourism in the heritage area.
Is this a 1-day tour, or is it 3 days over the 3 counties?
It's 1-day tour in one county. Then the next year it moves to the next county, and then the next year it moves to Carroll County.
If you're not familiar with the Maryland House and Garden pilgrimage, they do it every year, but usually it's in a different county over several weekends. It's like a 1-day Saturday that they'll do several counties. So it's been in Carroll County like every 5 or 6 years, it rotates back around to us. If you want, I think the vertical files at the Historical Society have copies of books from the old tours.
Oh, really?
If you wanna go in and see them, I think there's a file that's got a lot of them. If you wanna see what they look like, give you an idea of what you need.
I do have the sponsorship package. Apparently I got it in my email this morning, I was told, but I'm not sure I knew that. But at any rate, I'll probably bring that package with me next month and ask us to take up a sponsorship in support of this. And in anticipation that it's really successful, so that it comes to us in 2 years. So it'll be here after the 250th.
But I'm assuming the 250th is not gonna
Just
begin and end on July 4th, and I would assume that like the bicentennial will spread out
a little.
so that it'll cover the years of the American Revolution. So that July 4th will really be the kickoff of the celebration rather than the end of the celebration.
But anyway, please keep that on your radar, House and Garden Pilgrimage Tour. They haven't asked me for any volunteers yet. But I may come to you. I don't know. It should be in about a year from now. We're a year out for planning, so it should be in about a year from now. Oh, now's the time. I understand the DMO, Director of Marketing Organizations for both Washington County and Frederick County have already bought up the premium pages in the booklet, have already been purchased. And I don't know if Carroll County Tourism has gotten on that yet or not. See, but I know there are other packages I have are much more. I have to sell are much more modest. But this is definitely a tourism. I can't think of anything else I can add to the table. How about you, Chris?
Nothing.
Nothing, just dealing with a flood in my basement, that's it.
Oh.
But I fix it.
And
It's a historic
do you have
basement.
anything for the good of the cause?
Nothing for historic district. We're working on the project 2.0 funds. We're meeting with the property owners that were earmarked for those, trying to get timelines to ensure that we have businesses by 2025. Everybody's aware. So project Restore 2.0, we received $300,000 and we listed 3 properties specifically that the money was earmarked for. So we're working with those properties. Again, the concept is like December 2025, they had to be a vacant building as at the time we applied. And by 2025, December 2025, there should be a lease signed for business to be operating in that space.
Melissa, do you have anything for us? In
Um,
the brick?
other than the brick, there is. It's kind of silly actually, because our meeting conflicts with this, but. The businesses are open late on the first Wednesdays of the month. When we had our Downtown Business Association meeting and the downtown business leaders, they picked this date, so I wasn't in attendance and I don't sure that I would have swayed them otherwise, but the idea being that restaurants are already getting some foot traffic on Thursdays on weekend. Wednesdays is what was suggested, so it's a pilot program and this is the second night and then next month in October, so. We'll see if we ever make it on these nights, but it's really nice that the retailers and restaurants are banding together and staying open later because we have a lot of commuters in this town. So it's nice to have that option.
Well, we're meeting earlier, so we could actually leave earlier to go
Yeah,
get my tea.
what time is it open till?
8 o'clock.
Okay. But the restaurants stay open later.
The restaurants do, yeah. Julia Nova's typically is not open this late, so they're open, and Jeannie Bird Baking Company is open tonight, so those are. Yes.
Well, if there's nothing else for the Historic District Commission, don't have any public anymore. So what